Good morning.
Good morning.
Allow me on the onset, Director of Proceedings, to stand by the protocol already in establishment. I was tasked to highlight on key items on this auspicious occasion of promoting the launch of the promotion of sustainable tourism and private sector engagement for inclusive community development in response to COVID-19 crisis in Namibia, and how we should revive tourism in a safer and inclusive manner. My role is to bring up to speed or to trigger participants and the entire community on the topic of private sector engagement and community inclusion in tourism recovery. How should we do it, and how has it been done better somewhere else where we can benchmark and adopt best practices for our own implementation. My topic, I will highlight on four items. I will give you a background on the global context, on the impact of COVID-19 and the vulnerability of destinations. I will highlight key interventions that the Namibian government, together with its other partners and institutions, have undertaken during and now that we are seeing an array of light at the end of the tunnel. Some key interventions that were mentioned even 2 days ago by His Excellency the President. Then I want to remind the gathering on the role of the private sector. Maybe we misunderstood or misconstrued the role of each other. We should work together without necessarily doing each other's jobs. And then I will highlight the role of a community. I did not left out the role of the government, but it is not in the title. But I will speak to it here and then. Then I will speak to the narratives of key priority to recover tourism. The key priority considerations if we are to recover tourism holistically and in a safer manner. On the background, all of us are aware that the entire value chain that defines the industry has entered a state of suspension. I think it was March 2020 that for Namibia we have seen drastic measures that have suspended human movement and mobility. And on the global context, the same as well. The spin-offs of bankruptcies, the spin-offs for us was known for economic spin-offs, livelihood improvements, how a dollar rotates, how many times a dollar rotates in the locality before it leaves the locality. But the spin-offs after COVID or during COVID was the spin-offs of bankruptcy, of major airlines, hotels, car rentals, and large tour operators have been widely reported. And I'm talking about the European, the American, the Southeast Asian context. SME that make up around 80% of the licensed tourism and tourism-related business suffered a greater risk of failure. And there was a spillover of this bankruptcy and the risk of failure to smaller destinations and emerging destinations like Namibia. The collapse of tourism supply chain threatened various actors, including many vulnerable communities who depend on tourism for their livelihoods. And no one was spared. I think that collapse really, the tentacles of the COVID impact really touched every sector, every community around the globe, around the region, and around the continent, and in Namibia, everywhere in Namibia, not just in tourism sector. The World Travel and Tourism Council 2020 estimates that as many as 100 million jobs supported by travel and tourism are currently at risk. And this is one of the sector that creates more jobs, formal and informal. In Namibia, for example, a case in point, in 2020, I think the first COVID case, the two cases that were reported in Namibia were reported exactly 14th of March 2020. That's exactly my birthday, 3 days ago. In that year, the predictions that were made in 2018 by the World Travel and Tourism Council was that Namibia was destined to receive reduced to zero. That forego with it the more than 45% of employment that have been lost in the sector as well. And this is a sector that could in that year had employed up to 16.4% of the workforce in Namibia. And I just want you to imagine the context. But the Namibian government, together with its partners and institutions, did not relax on the matter. In as much as we were caught off guard and underprepared, there were measures. And I want us also to say, because we are talking about recovery, we're talking about renewing tourism and restarting tourism better. We also have to celebrate some of the success stories. During this difficult time, the government made available a stimulus package. Although little was channeled to tourism sector, it did help the vulnerable sections of society, youth, women, unemployed. You could have seen smiling faces, specifically in 2020, April to June, those around that time. And the tourism revival strategy was also undertaken by the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, that have brought sectors together to look at measures, avenues of collaborations, cohesions, and how to restart tourism. There was also a relaxing of COVID-19 measures during June 2020, opening up of hotels and restaurants to encourage maintenance of jobs. Because I think those are also the same intervals where you have seen the closure of Air Namibia, Wild Dog Safari closure, the redundance of some employment at safari hotels and some lodges as well. And I think there was a call by our ministry to the other Ministry of Health that at least we have to relax some measures to allow hotels and restaurants to function. Little measures. We did took some risk to test our resilience, but it did succeed in a way because some people really have jobs today. I traveled to Germany last year. Their situations are worse than ours. Restaurants were closed, and the measure that were taken there was harsher than ours. We were even lucky to see the light, to get out of your yard. It was not just here. The recent, and also at the same note, there was a conservation, relief, recovery, and resilience facility to assist local communities, those that are in conservancies, with some cash in order to combat key economic activities and also to engage in the anti-poaching measures. And I think during that time as well, it's not that because COVID have created or reduced the number of poaching, but at least measures did not stop. I think, but in a way, it has reduced dramatically, which we really have to be proud of. It's a key achievement that we have to celebrate. And I think recently, the relaxing of PCR tests at the points of entry, it's a positive note that we have to celebrate. And this is not just in Namibia. As I said, I went to Germany, I went through 2 countries to get to Germany. And you will not believe how many tests you have to do at the airport. And you pay for this test, and it's not cheap. Sometimes you do 5 wrong tests before you do 1 half right test in order to get through. And I think over the past 2 years, there was an increased visa openness as well. I'm sure you can attest to the countries that were allowed to travel to Namibia not requiring a visa. There was a positive increase in health and hygiene measures in Namibia. If you go somewhere else, I think we have, I don't want to overstate it, but I think we have invested heavily in the safety and protocol measures as a country. And this is something that if we sustain and maintain the momentum, it will put Namibia on the map as a safe destination to look up to. The opening of air routes, just after the closure of Air Namibia, one has seen the involvement of Fly Namibia, Airlink. The airline should not just be ours, but the positive responses that we did to opening up our sky to airlines, different airlines, and I'm hearing that Qatar Airline, the 26th of April, or when, it will start flying to Namibia and link Namibia to Germany and others. The other positive one is the launch of the National Strategy on Sustainable and Heritage Tourism Development and Employment Creation, Opportunity at Community Level 2020 to 2030. Towards my concluding remarks, I will speak to this strategy. And this is one of the strategies that attest and withstood its implementability in its models. And I will highlight two or three success stories of that. Those are the key interventions. Now, what is the role of the private sector? What should the private sector do in reviving tourism? Not excluding the involvement of local community, but what should be expected as the role of private sector? And I did not just write this myself. I had a conversation with the private sector. I had conversation with banking institutions, financial institutions. I had conversations with philanthropists and so on. It means I'm here narrating the voice of the owners, of the custodians. The private sector should be seen as a provider of employment, formal and informal. They should be seen as a delivering of critical goods and services and maintenance of such. They should be seen to contribute to tax revenues and efficient flow of capital, but they should be incentivized to do so. They should be appreciated to do so. Not just an expectation, but they have to be. And I think key destinations in the world, if you look at our eastern neighbor Botswana, opening up tourism specifically in the Kavango Delta for private sector to flourish, have seen the destination that is bigger than the country itself. And I think it's a clear attest the seriousness of government in encouraging tourism to flourish. They should be seen as absorbers of risk in key economic sectors such as agriculture, tourism, and technology. And on that one, I want to talk to the risk that the private sector and also some of our parastatals like NWR have suffered during COVID. What we did not appreciate or realize is that when people travel to a certain destination, they make pre-booking. Some people book like 3 years or 2 years in advance. The private sector and those that are in accommodation or tourism will know. They book in advance. Now, what happened in 2019, 2018, 2019, even 2017? These bookings was already made. And I think during those times, the US dollar to NAM dollar was 1 to 13 or 1 to 12. The bookings were made. Then comes after post-March 2020, cancellation, which was outside one's control. Now comes the issue of refund. Now you have to refund somebody who have paid 10,000 US dollars in 2017 when the dollar was 1 to 12. Now you have to refund when the dollar is 1 to 15. Now you see the formula. You see the spin-off bankruptcy where it started. And this is what I say, sometimes the private sector is an absorber of risk in the key economic sectors. And there was refunds that had made closure, contributed to closure of some of the establishments in Namibia. It should be seen to help leverage business opportunities. It should develop and maintain infrastructure and services, promote human capital development to help vulnerable groups, especially to participate in the labor market. And I'm happy that the Deputy Minister for Labor is here. And the strategy is also talking to employment creation at sustainable employment creation at community level. It can be informal, but it should be sustainable. Encourage local procurement through supply side measures. And I think this is something that we really have to have a conversation on. Open up our supply chains to encourage local supply and local procurement. You cannot be based in Skeleton Coast or Kunene in the northeast and put a tender to procure firewood in the eastern part of Namibia, while there is enough Mopani in Kaokoland that we can be with ease of access. I know it's not a forest, but they can be sustainably harvested. I am from that background. They should be seen as catalysts to attract investment, because the good thing about private sector is that they can consolidate, they can be merger between sectors, and something that you will hear towards the end as well, that attractiveness to attract investment. high standards through healthy competition. And I think when we revive tourism, there will be a stiffer competition. There will be a stiffer competition between destinations. South Africa will do whatever it takes to get everybody to South Africa. Botswana will do the same. Zimbabwe will do the same. And I think the competing priorities in our national context might undermine the money that we put into promoting Namibia as a destination and the money that might be required to make Namibia safer. Because after the 9/11, I think there was a safety issue at the airports. Now after COVID, there is a hygiene issue at the airports. It's another measure as well that will come with a cost. The role of a community, that's the role of the private sector. Without a doubt, community are undisputable indigenous hosts. Without a doubt, and I'm not talking about the poorest sections of society. I'm talking about even in Bendu, you are hosted by a community. The community should not be misunderstood. It's not poor people. It's not black people put together. We can be a community for tourism. We can be a community for conservation and environmental stewardship. They are the main custodians of local culture, heritage, and wildlife. And I was impressed by our two honorable ministers, the minister and deputy minister, in as much as they were escorted to come because of the time that we were late. They did stop for 10 minutes to really feel welcome by the dance here, this cultural group. And I was very thrilled by that. It can touch hearts and minds. And it revived us. In this room, we were never so quiet. In this room, we were always happy because tourism then, before 2020, it brought people together. The community should be made to understand the tourism needs and align local products and services to such in order to benefit to such. In order to be prosecuted and be judged, we should take time to capacitate community understanding of tourist needs. The people travel to Namibia to see Namibian cuisine, to dine Namibian cuisine. They travel to Namibia to buy craft. They travel to Namibia to see Namibians. They want to see the way how you move, dress, talk stories, talk your history. And I have to tell you, our history is part of our story, not the other way around. Not our story is part of our history. Our history is part of our story. And we should not shy away to tell our history. Where we come from, the apartheid history, the history of diamond, should be taught, these things. Yeah? The history of Swakopmund, all these are stories that should be narrated, and people want to hear these things. To be involved at planning, implementation, and benefit stages. Sometimes community, this is where vulnerability comes in. A project kickstart, big one, community are not involved, implementation happens, now you try to catch up. How do we distribute the benefits? Community are confused because they were not part of the planning, they were not part of the implementation process. And I say the role could have been, they should be involved in the planning, that phase of planning, the initial phase. The implementation phase, they should share the risk that tourism is a business, it's not a charity. And then when it comes to benefit, they will understand that the benefit will accrue from what was implemented and what was planned. Economic transformation initiative to boost community participation on an equal basis. I always borrow from agriculture. Transformation had happened in agriculture because of AgriBank, where you need normal collateral like your house, cash somewhere to access capital, either to buy cattle or livestock or buy a farm or buy land. But for tourism, we're still stuck in its intangibility. You cannot touch, feel, sense. It means it's very difficult. The barrier to entry is very high because you need huge capital to start a tourism business. It's not a small business. And now with the compliance requirements for registration, it's even making it harder because we don't have two categories, one for the status, one for already established. If you are a two-star hotel, you are expected to behave like a two-star accommodation. If you are in transport business, your car or your What COVID did is really to disrupt these small and medium enterprises that benefited from tourism alongside the roads. Everything was disrupted, and I think community would be reminded that through this initiative, this will be revived. Ladies and gentlemen, the extent of tourism recovery will depend on few things, and I will detail few. The degree of dependence of a country's economy on tourism and related services. And I think, as I have mentioned, Namibia is one of, if not number 3, number 4 contributor to the main GDP. It means, without a doubt, there is a high degree of dependence on tourism on our economy, Namibian economy. And we have to do whatever it takes. We have to stand together, stand firm to revive or to be interested in reviving tourism. The supply side resilience of a country, its ability to respond and recover from the crisis. And I think we have to relook our products and services. In a fair understanding, majority of our products and services were already also at maturity stage. Before they face decline, we have to re-engineer and innovate new ways, new thinkings. That does not say we have to go virtual. We can, but very small scale. Remember, this is a country where we want to appreciate authenticity. Yeah, we want to take people to the people. The more you replace that with virtual, you might kill the spirit. Namibia is very far. You cannot just come here and engage in virtual. You have to go there, feel, touch, and taste it. The demand dynamics, resilience of the country, key tourism source markets, including the role of domestic and regional markets. We have been hit hard because of our choices. And it was not a wrong choice. Because of the price that is injected in tourism initiation, sometimes you have to rely on foreign currencies. This came at the expense of the domestic market and regional market. South Africans lost travel. I had a call 2 days ago with the universities of South Africa, and I put to them the same. Our students are everywhere: Finland, Austria, Germany, the US, everywhere except South Africa. Our students are everywhere except Botswana. I don't know. I have been working for NUST for the past 18 years. I have been doing it. I have been doing the wrong things right. Sending the students at a very expensive routes and trips at the expense of our neighbors. And they will never appreciate that there is a link between our Ubuntu friends. And I think this is something that we have to, and I'm happy that as part of the national strategy on sustainable tourism and heritage tourism, that domestic tourism is featuring as a key sector that we should, same as regional tourism. And in the initial invitation, I was happy to see the South African High Commissioner reps part of our MIST. Even if they are not here, if they are here, I will be happy. If not, please, let's maintain the momentum, because those are the countries that we can go to cheaply and easily. Yeah? And the good thing, the alternative choices of transport. If you go to South Africa and you lose your flight, you can hitchhike in the lorry, come back. I think it's easy. You can even walk back. The policy environment for business, and I think this is where I really have to, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism have done their part in terms of policies. I think what is needed is other players to come on board. The Development Bank of Namibia, the Agri-Bank, the commercial banks to start coming on board. And I think measures have already been put in place. There are conducive policy for investments and so on. And these are the harmonization of policy for investments, which is something that we should just look at. Health and hygiene protocols, as I have mentioned. Ict readiness. This is one thing that we have to be very, very, very cautious about. Information communication technology readiness. What COVID had did in a way is also to, companies have started investing in technology. It means we don't want a situation where the human is replaced by automation. I think we still need that conduct. A waiter should always be there to explain the menu for you, to give you a variety of drinks. If that has to be replaced by technology, it will create unemployment as well. But to compete to that, we have to prove that we can do it. in terms of delivering quality services should be of serious note, of high note. Prioritization of travel and tourism by government, which is already a priority. Remember, at independence in 1990, with assistance from the European Union through the white paper on tourism, the tourism was already a key priority area. And that white paper have detailed few things that have given even birth to the hotel school, because capacity needs, capacity gaps was identified as one of the gaps, and the hotel school was built. That's why you are here today. This hotel school belongs to us all in tourism. That's why you are always welcome. International openness, and I think this is, we are start seeing the problem with North versus West is our timing. Our COVID cases might have dropped, but 2 days ago I heard that in China they are growing. You see, when we are enjoying our winter, they are enjoying our summer that side. And I think COVID will always be a rotating pandemic, and we have to increase our resilience to withstand some of these crises. Air transport is another one as well. Air transport was cheaper, that has influenced people to travel. Now if you look to, was it a few weeks ago, where the fuel was multiplied, not added, it was multiplied by $1.70 or so. It's not cheap anymore. And there is a formula in economics, whatever I'm charged, I will charge. Yeah, I will pass it on to the user. This might reduce the savings that were put down for travel might be lesser to do other activities. People might only come to that one activity and go back. There might not be a surplus to spend into community activities like buying crafts and needed products to support communities and so on. Tourist service infrastructures, and key priority for tourism recovery through private sector engagement and community inclusion will require market readiness. It's not just COVID have ended, let's open up the doors. The market readiness, and I'm happy that we are in Dubai. Our minister was in Dubai a few days ago. Thank you for extending our brand Namibia to that world. Now that we are at the discovery of oil, they will make sense to us because we share the same deserts, we share the same natural resources. It means there might be a new market for us. More liquid and agile player who withstand the severity of the downturn could have significant impact on how destinations emerge. I think there have to be a tourism recovery package. I think those that are serious to maintain employment, to employ youth, women should be assisted in one way or another. But we have to have a conversation with different players on this matter. And I'm happy that GIZ is on board and UNESCO, and they have done their part, specifically the UN community. Expand the value chain to spur economic growth in community settings. Please, in as much as the big player want to consolidate, want to merge, please don't forget that crucial part, the community inclusion. How? You should not be forced, you should not do favors. Let's sit around the fire, let's discuss, let's tell each other stories, let's take time. Even if it takes years, it's ours, it's here. Look, we have to level down suspicion and mistrust through active and mutual agreements. There is an attitude that we have to defend. Tourism is for few by few. It's a white man industry. We are not party to it. I have 4 degrees in tourism, including a PhD, and I am alive. And I think it's something that we really have to. It's not easy. It's not cheap to start a tourism business. But what is missing is the Namibian product. Is the Namibian aura. If you go to Botswana, Dumela will be the keyword. You go to Hawaii, aloha will be a keyword. The word, only one word to welcome you, then you know where you are. In Namibia, we still lose. That's still missing. What is our staple? What are we known for? Yeah? What are we known for? That is something that we should not compete with bigger players, but there should be an avenue for us. If you go to South Africa, in as much as it's a half-industrialized neighbor, they patterns have been hijacked. We don't enjoy what we produce, and we produce what we don't enjoy. We have to level down key barriers to entry, as I have spoken to. President, I'll finish now. The barrier to entry is a key concern. Lack of capital. In a discussion with some of the small players in the market, they have been living on the offal, the leftovers. And sometimes the consistency and sustainability of that is difficult. You have a group of 15 people that you need to take to the northwest of Namibia. You do it the first time, the second time. Now you have to work with the big players. They have the mobility, they have the accommodation, and they have the power. Now, your group want to come. They are willing to pay the 250,000 Namibian dollar, $250,000. They are willing to pay that. But you have to do things in advance. Now you have to do pre-booking. You need what? You try your level best. All the good words in English, yes, I will pay. Then the last word from the supplier is that we need a deposit. 10%, 25,000. You try to look around. I will pay, you know me, I will pay. And you know us. We only reveal or block the room once the payment is received. You know us as well. We know each other. Why are you pushing? And I think sometimes they do give up because they cannot maintain the consistency, the sustainability is not there. And these are the key barrier to entry for smaller players that we need to see how they can overcome that. We have to understand and interpret changing business models due to consolidation and corporate mergers. There will be lots of consolidation. Airlines and hotels will merge. There will be a takeover by the other industry so that at least they can make sense. They can make business sense. We cannot just sit here and say, I am Kavita, this is Gondo, Honorable Chifeta, on our own. No! Big players, they are consolidating. Avenues of consolidation, we need to have a conversation and see avenues of consolidation. We need to repurpose tourism assets for crisis operation. The cars that did not have, I know the new cars, they had a beer holder. Is it a beer or cool drink holder? Now they have to be one for sanitizer. They have to be, all these measures, this is what we are referring to. Yeah? We have to invest in renewal. Honorable Ministers, GIZ is not just renewal, but we have to invest in renewals. Maybe there have to be a competition. Any sector related to tourism that are willing to employ more than 25 youth, including women, will get an incentive of tax relief or will get a support of an X amount. It will be an incentive enough to renew and to incentivize our renewals. Support sector sustainability through greening. And I am happy that there is a green hydrogen initiative momentum going on. We also as a country, there was already a green approach to our energy sector, and I think we have to maintain this momentum. Any new development should be encouraged to invest in renewable energy and clean energy. Convert human-wildlife conflict into strategic business opportunity for affected communities. Human-wildlife conflict should not just be the ministry's problem and those communities' problem. It should be owned by all of us. We should have a conversation around business strategies around human-wildlife conflict. How do we get out better? And how do we benefit from this wildlife, abundance of wildlife? Remember that we are paying a price for our own success. The conservation success story is paying its dividends. And in that dividends, we are losing lives. And we have to have a formula on that now that we have reached that stage. And I'm happy that the Honorable Minister was in the news yesterday, those of us that have paid the TV license, was NBC. On the aspect, on the matter, it shows the seriousness of the ministry on trying to combat the aspect. In conclusion, I want to note few progress and achievement as a result of the rollout of the National Strategy on Sustainable Heritage Tourism Development and Employment Creation Opportunity at Community Level 2020-2030. In as much as that the document that I have drafted, I really want us to stand together and celebrate. Because it's one of the national documents that have proved to be useful. Let me economic development. In that, the tourism revival strategy was developed, and it happened. The strategic objective 2 was to broaden tourism's role in social inclusiveness. There, the key action framework was to revise and strengthen data and tourism statistics. And I'm happy through the World Tourism Organization, the tourism satellite accounts is happening through the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism and the Namibia Tourism Board. We will see a better statistics being reported. I think local authorities will have their own template to track progress, the contribution of tourism in terms of employment and cash, and report back to the national statistics so that at least it inform the planning and guide the planning processes. And finally, the strategic objective 3 was to boost tourism's role in cultural value, biodiversity, and heritage conservation. The key action framework was to position sustainable heritage tourism as a tool for employment creation at community level. And I'm happy that's the one that brought us today here. And I thank you.